You're listening to Coach Talk with your host, Coach Aisha and friends, who offers personal development coaching and advice to get you from where you are in your life, business, and career to where you want to be. Here's your host, Coach Aisha.
All right, peace and greetings to all. Welcome to Coach Talk. I'm your host, Coach Aisha. If this is your first time listening, then thanks for coming. You can find all of today's show notes at www.coachtalkshow.com. Be sure to add us on social media as well. All social media links can be found in the show notes. So let's get started. In this episode, I want to talk to you about how to be optimistic so that you can be successful or more successful in life. Research shows that approximately 87% of the things we say to ourselves about ourselves are negative, and they're self-destructive and they're undermining. This negative self-talk leads to a self-fulfilling prophecy, shall I say, right? So what we tell ourselves creates a mindset which make our self-talk come true. Negative self-talk increases your unhappiness and incompetence. It can make you unhealthy and self-destructive. Fortunately, positive self-talk can do just the opposite. It can make you healthier, happier, and more confident and more competent. Realistic, practical optimism is a choice that you can make on purpose to help you manage your life successfully. There is a set of characteristics that most optimists have in common, but they have these in common through the use of certain strategies naturally used by most optimists. Pessimists can turn themselves into optimists. So this is a good thing if you are a pessimist. So listen up. Well, first of all, realistic, practical optimism is not a denial of reality. It's not masking over problems. It's not pointless hoping. Okay, it is more, let's say, a system of confronting problems. It's a way to choose the best outcomes. It's a method for coping with any challenges, and it's a happier, healthier approach to life. Now, everybody has a unique set of experiences in life that gives us a model of the world that we live in. And this includes our interests, our likes, our dislikes, our values, and even our emotional tendencies. We are all born with coping abilities which change as we interact with the world. As we grow up, our coping abilities, our coping skills can become weaker, and they can also become stronger. And we become more positive, or we become more negative in our attitude. Now, at one time, it was believed that we react to life stresses by avoiding it, repressing it, or denying it. Now, in these days, we know that all of us are born with the potential to manage stress, but not all people make the most of that potential. So, to be human means that we can change our habits and our patterns of behavior. This is a great thing. We can identify what makes us cope successfully and the things that impede that. We can analyze our own approach to life and challenge and replace our less successful coping methods that we have. So what I'm going to do is talk to you about the mental attitude at the heart of optimism, the obstacles to being optimistic. I'm going to give you some techniques that you can use to strengthen optimism, and the benefits of having a realistic and a practical optimistic approach to life. So the cornerstone of optimism is self-esteem, which is the basis of all psychological growth. Now, our resilience in the face of adversity is determined by our self-esteem. Dr. Nathaniel Branden, he wrote the book, The Power of Self-Esteem. He defines self-esteem as being the experience that we are appropriate to life and to the requirements of life. So I'm going to say that again. The experience that we are appropriate to life and to the requirements of life. And it is one, confidence in our ability to think and to cope with the challenges of life. And two, confidence in our right to be happy, the feeling of being worthy, deserving, entitled to assert our needs and wants and to enjoy the fruits of our efforts. So, when our self esteem is low, we are much more vulnerable to negative forces. We suffer from a sense of not being enough, a generalized feeling of distrust or self distrust, and a feeling of unworthiness. If we have confidence in our value, we will be empowered and will be energized and motivated. We'll see the world as open to us, and we are able to respond appropriately to both challenges and opportunities. So, this is more important today than ever since we need more self management and innovation than ever before. All right, let me give you some characteristics of optimistic people, and maybe you can try to implement some of these in your life. So, number one, they have a commitment to life. They believe that life is worth living. This belief gives them the passion which feeds their optimism. Number two, they're flexible people, right? So being flexible, what they do is they modify their habits to work with others. They modify their habits to work with others personally and professionally. They're usually cooperative, so they have like a reciprocal relationship with their family members and their friends and their coworkers, etc. They have a resourcefulness about them, right? They're very resourceful. Optimistic people, they what they do is what normally happen with them is that they face and they thought through situations, and they know where to turn for support and how to find help when they need it. Optimistic people, number four, optimistic people, they take risks. They take risk, right? They don't play it safe if it looks like that the risk that they're willing to take is going to pay off for them. All right. Number five, acceptance of personal responsibility. So optimists have a realistic assessment of themselves. They are not victims. They don't make excuses and they learn from their mistakes. All right. And let's see their perspective. Optimists are realists and they can see what is important and what is not. They actually work to solve the more serious issues, and they tend to ignore the ones that really don't play a role in their lives. Optimists are they have a openness trait about them, right? So they welcome new ideas and they welcome change. They realistically evaluate new information for their use now or in the future. Optimists also have a proactive attitude. They meet challenges with action. They're proactive rather than reactive. They aren't paralyzed by fear of failure or of the unknown. And let's see, the last one I have for you is their attention. Optimists, they pay attention to the world around them. They listen to other ideas and rather than just shutting out ideas of others. Okay, so these are a few things a few characteristics of optimists. So I'll just repeat them really quickly again. Number one, they have a commitment to life. They're flexible. They're resourceful. They have a willingness to risk. They accept personal responsibility. They have an open perspective on things in life. They have a proactive attitude and they really pay attention to what's going on around them. Now let's talk about some obstacles that you might have to optimism. So we're all born with a degree of natural self-confidence, and this is the basis of optimism. But sometimes our self-confidence can be worn down by other negative influences, which are obstacles to optimism. So the most common are, first of all, blame and criticism. Now, blame and criticism can come in all stages of life. First, your parents probably handed out quite a bit of criticism while trying to teach you the right things to do. Whether it was just or unjust criticism, it could have diminished your confidence. And then later, you may have experienced blame and criticism in school from grades to sports. You are always being compared to others, and no one is the best at everything. The workplace is another area where we receive criticism. It can be severe depending on the manager and the culture of the company. Finally, your partner may be critical, comparing you to an ideal in his mind or in her mind. So this is, things that happen, right? Now, the result of this blame and criticism can be that you think everything is your fault. You become vulnerable to criticism, and also you don't take risks because you think that you might fail. All right, so blaming criticism is one obstacle to optimism and being optimistic. Another one is conformity. As we begin to grow up, many of us learn that it's safer to be quiet and conform to the crowd. It could be that when we stepped out when we were younger and we were hanging out with our friends and we did something wrong, we were probably laughed at. On the other hand, if we were maybe say like right about something a lot of times, if we found that we were like right about things all the time, we'd probably be criticized for that. So the safe route was to just watch what others did and do that, right? That was just safe for us to do. And the result of these experiences can be one, that you don't take opportunities when they come along. Two, you become a people pleaser. And also, three, you live based on what you should do instead of what you really want to do. So that's conformity. The third obstacle to optimism is competition. So now again, school is an environment where we are always in competition. We're in competition for grades, we're in competition for sports, music, etc. If we continually try our best and we're not rewarded for it, we become accustomed to disappointment and we may start to believe that we will never be enough. So, this can lead to one, you're doubting your own ability. Two, you comparing yourself with others, and three, you're putting yourself under extra stress in order to succeed. All right, so that is competition. The next one is disappointment. This is another obstacle to optimism. Now, disappointments are inevitable in life for everyone sometimes. They can happen in school, at work, or in personal relationships. Whenever we expect something good to happen and it doesn't happen, we what? Get disappointed, right? So, with all this disappointment, we can begin to distrust ourselves and others. We begin to become cynical and we don't believe in anything. So this results to one, you expecting things to go wrong and so you don't even try. Two, you feel that you're not good so nothing good happens. And three, also you may worry when things go well and then you wait for, the other shoe to drop. So this is clearly disappointment, is really an obstacle to optimism. And now the last obstacle I'm going to give you to optimism is perfectionism, right? So perfectionism usually begins in childhood and it stems from our parents who may set up very high standards for their children. And this may result to you becoming a human doing rather than a human being, right? Someone who sees his value in what he does, not in his simple existence. So the long lasting results of this are one, you criticize yourself for not being perfect. Two, you fear disapproval. And three, you won't let others see your mistakes. Now, all of these influences are challenges to an optimistic, positive attitude. The best way to combat these obstacles is with awareness that they are a part of your current attitude. And then with positive self-talk. So, I'm going to give you a simple two-step process, and it really works quite well, especially if you practice it, if you consistently practice it. So, again, the first step is the awareness, the realization, and the second step is the self-talk. So, let me give you an example of self-talk for perfectionism. So, step one, the realization goes something like this. I'm constantly afraid that people will think I'm stupid if I say the wrong thing. Okay, so I have an awareness of what I'm afraid of. And then step two is the self talk part, and it goes like this: I'm tired of being afraid of that. Why should I give other people's opinions so much importance? Besides, everyone is wrong sometimes. It doesn't mean that they're stupid. I'm just going to say what it is that I wanted to say. Okay, so again, step one is the awareness and the realization, and then step two is the self talk. So try these out a few times, try this out a few times, and I promise you that you will feel a lot better. Now, here's just a few more tips to help you be more optimistic and have a positive mindset. All right, so to be ambiguous. Now, have you ever known someone who only sees the world in terms of black and white? Like everything is either good or bad or right or wrong with like nothing in between? Well, we all get into these situations where we tend to have a lack of ambiguity. And when we do, this leads to harshness, and it leads to punishment and being condemned, etc. So, a sense of ambiguity helps us see people in gray areas, and it allows us to look at situations from many different viewpoints. So, this is going to help us to question life in a positive way and become more tolerant and understanding of others. When we look at life in an ambiguous way, it's a more realistic approach since there are many gray areas in life. So, for instance, even like very intelligent people, they can sometimes do like, really stupid things. That's because they're human. So, understanding ambiguity makes life easier on you and on the people around you. It's both realistic and flexible. Without it, it's impossible to have a positive mental attitude. Another tip is to be objective. So, to be objective, that's another essential ingredient of optimism. Have you ever known someone who is consistently makes like mountains out of molehills? You know, those type of people that you feel like you're talking or like you're walking on eggshells when you're around them. And these people, they make the most difficult friends, the most difficult lovers, the most difficult parents, and the most difficult bosses. So, when you are objective, you have the ability to take a good look at what you're doing. You get to take a good look at who you are and what is it that you want. So, without exercising objectivity, you have little chance of maintaining a positive attitude. So, you have to practice being objective. All right, here's another one: discrimination. Now, when I talk about discrimination, I'm talking about it in a good way. What we need is the ability to look at a lot of options and decide which one is the best in a certain circumstance. On the other hand, you need to realize that the world exists in shades of gray. And then on the other hand, you need to be able to evaluate all those shades of gray and distinguish between them. So it's not as simple as having two options, one black and one white. Usually, life isn't just that clear cut. All right, so knowing that you have options and being able to choose among them is essential to maintaining an optimistic attitude. All right, now detachment. So, this is the ability to separate your emotions from your intellect so that you can make the best choice in emotionally difficult situations. When our emotions are involved, we can act impulsively because we're trying to protect ourselves in some kind of way. When we have detachment, we are capable of taking a step back. When we do this, we are capable of assessing the situation objectively and then taking appropriate action. This intelligent, self affirming approach is a key part of optimistic thinking. And let's see, lastly, I want to talk to you about logic. Okay, so have you ever known someone who seemed intelligent enough, but they had no common sense? You know, someone who seemed to get into trouble for like the stupidest things, the craziest things, just ridiculous. This person probably suffers from an inability to look at situations logically. Logic is simply the ability to look at options, evaluate the outcomes of each option, and then decide which ones are good and which ones are bad. Without logic, people often rationalize. That means that, they use the excuse that it's convenient instead of choosing what the best solution really is. We all rationalize from time to time. Like, we say things like, I can't afford them, but I love the way those shoes look. They're on sale. I think I'm going to buy them. Or we might say something like, I should stop smoking, but if I do, I'll only pick up another bad habit, right? So you can probably supply some of your own rationalizations in there, but that was just an example. So the good thing is that most of us know what we're doing. We don't do it too often, or we don't do them for like serious situations and serious things. We can choose not to do it, right? So the better we are at choosing the most logical, best outcomes for ourselves, the easier it is to maintain a realistic, practical, optimistic attitude. So you can probably see that the more we combine all of these aspects, the more positive our thinking will be. All of these things need to work together for efficient, effective thinking. When you do have all of these aspects working together, you'll be able to see how they can help you to nurture and maintain a realistic and practical, optimistic attitude. All right, so I just want to do a really quick recap for you. So, number one, what we need to do is to have an optimistic attitude and positive thinking. We need to develop characteristics of an optimistic person, right? So, you need to commit to life, be flexible, be resourceful, have a willingness to risk, accept personal responsibility, have a open perspective on life, have a proactive attitude, and pay attention to the world around you. Also, we want to develop or be more ambiguous, objective. We discriminate in a positive way, detach ourselves from emotions, and we want to think logically. Okay, so then you must also take a look at the obstacles that are hindering you from being optimistic, which is blame and criticism, conformity, competition, disappointment, perfectionism, okay? And with those things, practice the two steps that I gave you to self-talk, okay, which is step one, the awareness and realization, and then step two is the actual process of the self-talk. Well, that's the end of this episode. I hope you've enjoyed it. See you in the next episode.
Thanks for listening to Coach Talk. Be sure to check out our website at www.coachtalkshow.com for previous podcasts, show notes, links, and more. This has been a Universal Coach Center production. Join us next time for another edition of Coach Talk.